Look closely at the patterns of your life, specifically at the catastrophes. Consider the moments where the floor beneath you vanished, where betrayal, loss, or an inexplicable paralysis took hold of your spirit. In those hours of bitter isolation, you likely believed you were the victim of a chaotic, indifferent universe, or worse, a cursed protagonist in a play written by a hostile deity. But I must tell you a terrifying and liberating truth. You are not being punished. You are being pursued. There is a silent, subterranean architecture to your life. Beneath the surface of your conscious awareness, the fragile ego you present to the world, lies a vast, ancient ocean, the unconscious. It is not a passive basement of discarded memories. It is a living, breathing, highly intelligent force. And it has a singular mandate: to make you whole. When you refuse to look at your own depths, when you bury your true desires, your shames, and your latent genius out of fear or societal compliance, that buried material does not die. It mutates. It bides its time. And eventually, it loops backward and forces its way into your external reality. It manifests as the sudden bankruptcy, the failed relationship, the chronic illness, or the freak accident. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. If you leave this room before we conclude our exploration today, you will continue to live at the mercy of this fate. You will walk back out into a world where you feel like a leaf tossed by the wind, forever wondering why the same tragedies keep finding you. But if you stay, if you possess the raw courage to look into the mirror we are about to hold up, you will discover something miraculous. You will realize that the very universe you thought was tearing you apart is actually conspiring to put you back together. Every obstacle, every broken heart, and every synchronistic detour has been meticulously orchestrated by your own deeper psyche to force you into your highest evolution. Everything, absolutely everything, is already working out in your favor. But to claim that favor, you must first understand the language of the unseen. My friends, we live under a grand delusion. We have been conditioned by a hyper-rational, mechanized age to believe that the world is something outside of us. A cold, objective landscape of matter and physics that we must conquer, manipulate, and defend ourselves against. We treat our inner life as a mere byproduct of our biology, a quiet spectator to an external reality. This is a catastrophic error of perception. The world is not outside of you. The world is a mirror of the psychic drama taking place within you. When we say that everything is working out in your favor, the childish ego hears a promise of comfort. It imagines a life of unblemished happiness, wealth, and smooth sailing. But the ego is a short-sighted monarch. It wants comfort. The psyche wants wholeness. And because the psyche demands wholeness, your favor will often look like a storm. Consider the ancient concept of metanoia, the transformation of the mind. It does not happen in green pastures. It happens in the belly of the whale. It happens when the structures of your life crumble. If you are experiencing a period of intense friction, if you feel lost, or if you are confronting a recurring nightmare in your career or your relationships, I implore you to change your question. Stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Start asking, "What is this trying to birth within me?" The psyche is teleological. It operates with a forward-looking purpose. It possesses an intrinsic blueprint for your completion, a process I call individualization. Just as the acorn contains the complete energetic blueprint of the oak tree, your unconscious mind contains the complete blueprint of the realized human being you are meant to become. But the oak tree cannot grow without breaking the shell of the acorn. The shell must crack. It must rot in the dark earth. To the acorn, this is death. To the universe, it is the birth of the oak. When your life cracks open, it is not destruction. It is the breaking of the shell. The universe is responding to your unspoken, deeper need to grow past your current limitations. You may think you want to stay in the safety of your small, familiar prison, but the self, the true center of your psychological totality, will not allow it. It will disrupt your life. It will alienate you from people who no longer serve your growth, and it will sabotage your false successes, all to force you back onto the path of your true destiny. Have you ever noticed how, in the moments of your greatest crossroads, strange coincidences occur? A book falls off a shelf. A stranger says the exact words you needed to hear. An unexpected phone call changes your trajectory. These are not mere accidents. They are moments of synchronicity, where the internal psychological reality and the external physical reality click together in perfect harmony. They are brief, glowing signals from the universe, reminding you that the boundary between the inner me and the outer world is an illusion. They are proof that a deeper current is navigating your ship, even when you have dropped the oars. To live in the truth that everything is working out in your favor requires a monumental shift in consciousness. It requires you to stop fighting the dark chapters of your story. You must integrate your shadow. You must look at your wounds, your failures, and your terrors, not as evidence of your inadequacy, but as the raw material from which your wisdom will be forged. Do not look for salvation outside of yourselves. Do not wait for the world to change so that you can feel secure. Turn your gaze inward. Reclaim the pieces of yourself you have cast out into the dark. When you reconcile the warring factions within your own mind, you will find that the outer world magically arranges itself in accordance with your internal peace. The universe is not indifferent to you. It is actively dreaming you into existence. Trust the tension. Trust the dark. Trust the breakdown. For it is in the crucible of your deepest trials that the gold of your true nature is being refined. Look closely, step boldly, and know that the current of life is not running against you. It is carrying you home. The blueprint of the shadow demands that we completely dismantle our conventional understanding of what it means to live a life aligned with favor. When we cursorily declare that everything is working out for us, the ego, in its profound naivety, projects an idealized landscape devoid of friction, heartbreak, or sorrow. It craves a linear ascent into comfort, viewing any onset of suffering as an external malice, an unfair imposition by an indifferent or hostile universe. But this view is a dangerous psychological illusion. The human psyche is a vast, bifurcated kingdom, and that which we consciously claim to be, our curated virtues, our polite social personas, our deliberate choices, represents only a fraction of our total psychological reality. Beneath this brightly lit surface lies the shadow, the massive subterranean reservoir where we banish our unexpressed anger, our terrifying desires, our unhealed traumas, and even our most potent, uncultivated genius. We hide these parts of ourselves because they threaten our safety and our acceptance in the waking world, burying them deep in the subconscious earth and pretending they no longer exist. Yet, psychic energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be displaced. When these vital, rejected pieces of the self are left unexamined in the dark, they do not remain dormant. They fester, grow desperate, and eventually exert a powerful, magnetic pull on our external reality. They begin to manipulate our choices from behind the scenes, drawing us toward the very people who will hurt us, the very failures we dread, and the exact catastrophes we consciously try to avoid. You find yourself trapped in repetitive cycles of betrayal, stagnation, or sudden ruin, and in your despair, you look at the sky and curse your terrible fate. But a rigorous investigation of the unconscious reveals a far more profound truth. What you are calling fate is merely your own unintegrated shadow exploding into your outer life. The universe is not punishing you with these hardships. It is mirroring you. It is operating with a fierce, uncompromising intelligence, orchestrating events that will violently crack open your illusions so that you are forced to confront the buried treasure and the hidden monsters within. True alignment, the genuine realization that everything is working out in your favor, does not mean being spared from the crucible of suffering. Rather, it means recognizing that the crucible itself is a vital instrument of your evolution, designed by your own deeper psyche to compel you toward wholeness. If the universe merely catered to your ego's desire for perpetual comfort, you would remain a stunted, fragmented creature, forever running from the dark half of your soul. Therefore, the repetitive obstacles and the sudden collapses of your carefully built structures are actually acts of supreme grace. They are the shadow forcing its way into the light, demanding to be seen, felt, and integrated into your total being. To claim the favor of the universe, you must stop fleeing from your darkness and instead turn around to face it. You must possess the courage to look at your miseries not as random external tragedies, but as urgent, synchronistic messages from the unconscious, signaling that a vital part of yourself has been left behind and is screaming to be brought home. To understand the synchronistic compass is to realize that the universe we inhabit is not a dead, mechanical assembly of accidental collisions, but a living, breathing tapestry bound by an underlying web of meaning. In our modern, hyper-rationalized existence, we have been fiercely conditioned to view the world through the rigid lens of linear causality, the belief that every event must be directly pushed or pulled by a physical predecessor. When we encounter highly unusual coincidences, our immediate instinct is to dismiss them as statistical anomalies, mere flukes of chance that occur in a chaotic environment. However, when you begin to observe your life with a heightened sense of internal awareness, you discover that certain coincidences possess an undeniable, luminous weight that cannot be explained away by mathematics alone. These are the moments of synchronicity, occurrences where an intense, deeply private internal state, a dream, a sudden realization, an unspoken grief, or a profound existential question, is suddenly and perfectly mirrored by an external, objective event in the physical world, without any traceable causal connection between the two. A specific bird lands on your windowsill at the exact moment you weep for a lost love. A book, long out of print and containing the precise answer to your hidden torment, falls off a shelf at your feet in an unfamiliar shop. A stranger utters a phrase that unlocks a psychological knot you have carried for a decade. These events do not happen because the physical world is randomly stumbling into your path. They happen because the boundary we draw between the psyche and the material universe is ultimately a psychological fiction. There is a deeper layer of reality, an ordering principle that exists beyond our conventional understanding of space and time, where mind and matter are revealed to be two faces of the exact same coin. When you experience a synchronistic event, the universe is providing you with an objective reflection of your subjective reality, proving that your inner life is not an isolated chamber, but an active participant in a cosmic dialogue. This is the mechanism through which the world demonstrates that everything is already working out in your favor, though not in the superficial way the ego expects. The synchronistic compass does not exist to guide you toward easy wealth or shallow comforts. It is an orientation device for the soul, a supernatural navigation system that flashes into awareness precisely when you are at a crossroads or when you have veered dangerously off your true path of development. When you are lost in the dark night of the soul, feeling utterly abandoned by life, a sudden, meaningful coincidence arrives like a flare shot into the night sky, signaling that you are being watched, that you are being guided, and that an invisible intelligence is actively coordinating the external world to match your internal evolutionary needs. It is a profound disruption of your skepticism, forcing you to realize that the universe is not indifferent to your suffering or your growth. By paying attention to these acausal, meaningful coincidences, you begin to perceive the hidden current that flows beneath the surface of daily life. a current that is constantly arranging circumstances, people, and events in perfect poetic orchestration to aid in your awakening, demanding only that you cultivate the eyes to see and the humility to follow where it points. The concept of the teleological pull of the psyche demands a radical inversion of how we typically diagnose our psychological pain and life conflicts. Mainstream understanding almost exclusively looks backward, operating under the assumption that we are merely the damaged products of our past traumas, our childhood conditioning, and our historic failures. We treat our anxieties, our depressions, and our midlife paralyses as defective mechanisms, malfunctioning parts of a machine that must be medicated, suppressed, or behaviorally corrected so we can return to a state of stagnant normalcy. But this backward-looking perspective entirely misses the profound intelligence of the human spirit. The psyche is not merely driven from behind by the blind momentum of past cause and effect. It is actively pulled forward by a future purpose. It is inherently teleological, meaning it operates with an ultimate end, a design, and a goal in mind. Every psychological crisis, every inexplicable bout of neurosis, and every agonizing internal conflict you endure is not a sign of your impending destruction, but an active, deliberate attempt by the deeper self to heal, to expand, and to individualize itself. The psyche purposefully generates friction when the life you are currently living has become too small for the soul you are meant to embody. When you feel a profound sense of emptiness or an inability to move forward in your career or relationships, it is not because you are broken. It is because the forward-looking intelligence within you is actively sabotaging your current adaptation because it no longer serves your highest evolution. Just as physical pain is a vital, self-regulating biological signal warning you to pull your hand away from a flame, psychological suffering is a self-regulating psychic signal alerting you that your conscious ego has deviated dangerously from your true path. The conflict itself contains the hidden seed of the future solution. It is the psyche's way of forcing a breakdown of your outgrown identity so that a more authentic, complete version of yourself can be birthed from the ashes. If you look at your struggles through this teleological lens, you begin to realize that the universe, operating through the medium of your own unconscious mind, is never acting maliciously when it strips away your comforts. The depression that grounds you to your bed is often a forced incubation period, pulling your energy away from a superficial world so you can finally look inward. The anxiety that paralyzes your career choices is often a fierce protection mechanism, preventing you from committing your life force to a path that will ultimately starve your spirit. The psyche knows what you require long before your conscious mind can articulate it, and it will ruthlessly tear down your false structures to ensure you fulfill your cosmic potential. This is the profound truth of everything working out in your favor. The universe loves you too much to let you remain comfortable in a life of self-betrayal. Every wound you carry is not just a historical scar. It is an open doorway through which your future self is trying to enter, pulling you step by agonizing step toward the ultimate realization of your totality. The illusion of the cruel world is one of the most convincing and paralyzing traps the human mind can construct. When we look out at our lives and see a landscape of repetitive hardships, toxic relationships, unfair betrayals, and systemic blocks, our natural conscious reaction is to adopt the posture of the victim. We conclude that the external environment is inherently hostile, that fate has singled us out for misery, or that the world is a chaotic, disorganized place where our efforts are routinely crushed by malice or indifference. But a deep dive into the mechanics of the unconscious reveals that this perceived cruelty is actually a magnificent, albeit painful, psychological mirror. What we experience as an external, aggressive reality is very often the projection of our own unexamined inner chaos, cast outward onto the screen of the world. Because the conscious ego refuses to look at its own deep-seated blockages, its hidden guilt, and its unhealed core wounds. The psyche has no choice but to project these exact dynamics onto the people and circumstances around us. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. If you carry a buried, unconscious belief that you are inherently unworthy of love or success, you will unconsciously seek out, tolerate, and even provoke situations that validate that terrifying assumption. You will be drawn to partners who abandon you, employers who undervalue you, and friends who betray you, all while consciously weeping at the sheer unfairness of your life. The world appears cruel, not because it wants to destroy you, but because it is fiercely, relentlessly trying to wake you up from your slumber. The universe is responding to your psychic reality with absolute, mathematical precision. If it allowed you to remain comfortable while living a lie, if it permitted your external life to be smooth while your inner life was fractured and unexamined, it would be doing you a profound disservice. Therefore, the very hostility of the world is actually a manifestation of its ultimate favor. The recurring obstacles that block your path are not walls meant to stop you, but mirrors meant to reflect you. They are the universe's way of saying that you cannot proceed any further until you heal the internal rift that is generating this external friction. When the world breaks your heart for the 10th time, it is not an act of random cruelty. It is a violent disruption designed to snap you out of your projection, forcing you to look away from the external perpetrator and turn your gaze inward to ask what part of your own soul is conspiring in this tragedy. The moment you possess the courage to withdraw your projections, the moment you stop blaming the cruel world and begin to take radical responsibility for the unconscious dynamics you are exporting into your environment, the external landscape begins to shift. The hostile world softens because it no longer needs to act as a blunt force instrument to gain your attention. You realize that the universe was never your enemy. It was merely a mirror reflecting your own internal war back at you, waiting patiently for you to lay down your weapons and choose wholeness over victimhood. The concept of active submission to the self requires us to completely redefine our understanding of power, control, and human willpower. In our modern epoch, we have sanctified the ego, that fragile, conscious center of our daily awareness, as the absolute master of our destiny. We are told that to succeed, to find happiness, and to conquer life, we must exert ruthless discipline, manipulate our environments, and bend reality to our specific, conscious demands. But this ego-driven striving is a form of psychological blindness that inevitably leads to neurosis, exhaustion, and despair. The ego is merely a tiny island floating upon a vast, unfathomable ocean of the unconscious, and it possesses neither the wisdom nor the vision to understand what truly constitutes our ultimate well-being. The self, by contrast, is the archetype of wholeness. It is the central organizing principle of the entire psyche, the ancient and intelligent axis that encompasses both the conscious mind and the totality of the unconscious. To experience life as a force that is genuinely working out in your favor, you must undergo a profound psychological dethronement, transitioning from a state of ego tyranny to a state of active submission to this larger, internal authority. This submission is not a passive, cowardly defeatism, nor is it a resignation to a miserable fate. It is a highly conscious, courageous act of psychological surrender, a decision to stop fighting the natural current of your deeper evolution and to begin trusting the overarching intelligence that guides it. When you actively submit to the self, you willingly relinquish your rigid, preconceived notions of how your life should look. You stop demanding that the universe deliver specific material rewards, specific relationships, or specific timelines just to soothe your ego's deep-seated anxieties. Instead, you develop the humility to listen to the whispers of the unconscious, which arrive through your dreams, your bodily symptoms, your creative impulses, and your synchronistic encounters. You begin to understand that when your ego's cherished plans are violently disrupted, It is not a tragedy, but a necessary correction from the self, steering you away from a superficial existence and toward your authentic individualization. This shift in posture fundamentally alters your relationship with adversity. Instead of gripping the steering wheel of your life with white knuckles and screaming at every detour, you relax into the realization that a much wiser navigator is at the helm. You begin to cooperate with the dark, heavy, and difficult chapters of your story, recognizing them as essential phases of psychological incubation rather than random acts of cosmic malice. By yielding the ego's frantic demands to the supreme wisdom of the self, you align your conscious will with the deep, evolutionary current of the universe. In this state of active submission, the immense friction that once characterized your daily life begins to dissolve. You no longer feel like an isolated, vulnerable atom fighting against a hostile world. You realize that you are an expression of a grand, self-regulating psychic ecosystem that is constantly orchestrating events for your ultimate realization. The universe no longer needs to break your life apart to get your attention, because you have finally chosen to walk willingly into the fires of transformation, trusting that whatever is burned away was never truly yours to keep, and whatever remains is unshakable truth.